Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning into News 9 Live. We're bringing you this special broadcast from our studios here in the national capital, styled exclusively, ladies and gentlemen, by Paul Moll. I'm Kabir Naqvi, and over the next couple of minutes, we're going to decode, unpack, analyze what's really happening, even as we're trying to assess the 14th day of the Israel-Hamas war. The latest updates, first and foremost, from the Israel-Hamas war, the war-torn region, the entire area. Is West Bank now turning into a third possible front? That's going to be our focus as well. Even as the Israeli Defense Forces are readying their troops, and Gazans across the Gaza Strip are awaiting relief aid that will come across from the Rafah border. No confirmation as to when that is going to happen. This is the latest that we're putting out for you, ladies and gentlemen. At least 3,700 people killed in Gaza, 1,400 in Israel ever since the onslaught on the 7th of October and the constant bombardment of the Strip. Israel is constantly readying itself for ground invasion, a possible ground invasion. Several people coming to us on our channel as well, which includes the likes of a former national security advisor of Israel, saying that the next stage is imminent, and the next stage is entering Gaza, incursion into Gaza. The defense minister was also heard speaking, trying to lift the momentum and the spirit of the IDF soldiers, telling them, for all those that are looking at Gaza from afar, let me tell you that you will see it from inside. Meanwhile, several reports in the international media talking about how these tanks and the deployment of the tanks is actually very far away, not at all the places. It doesn't circumvent the entire Gaza border and is located in sparse, spread out locations. Meanwhile, West Bank is another area after the Gaza hospital bombing that has seen an uptick in violence. At least 9 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces under Israeli raids in the West Bank. From protests to funerals to constant violence, that's the situation right now in West Bank. We will continue to bring you the latest updates on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Do stay on with us because towards the end of this particular wrap-up, we will also showcase some top global news that you, in fact, should know about. But first and foremost, shifting our focus to the violence in the occupied West Bank, ladies and gentlemen. The violence has surged since Israel began bombarding the Gaza Strip collectively, and the clashes with Hezbollah at the Lebanon border, which many are saying is the second front up on the north, is not, well, making things easier for Israeli forces as well. All of this has fueled concerns that the flashpoint, the Palestinian territory, could become a third front in a wider war. This is coming across from West Bank, which could turn into a possible third front, ladies and gentlemen. 13 people, including 5 children, lost their lives during clashes with Israeli forces in the Nur Shams refugee camp in the West Bank. Now, this information comes from both the Palestinian Health Ministry and the Palestinian Red Crescent. Now, the Israeli military claimed that the airstrike that targeted terrorists, but it also resulted in the death of 10 Israeli officers that got wounded as well. So far, over 74 Palestinians have lost their lives in the West Bank collectively as the death toll is mounting. On the other hand, Palestinian protesters, they took to the streets in the occupied West Bank area, blaming Israel for a strike on a hospital in war-torn Gaza. The particular hospital that left at least 500 people dead. Meanwhile, burning projectiles were seen illuminating the darkened Gaza city skyline for another night. Additionally, there was a distant fire burning in the city as well. Israel has put the Gaza Strip's 2.3 million people under siege and bombarded the enclave with strikes that have killed thousands and made more than 1 million homeless. Take a look at some of those shots as the Gaza skyline, which is reeling under no electricity, no food, no fuel, and, well, it seems like now no hope. This is the only means of illumination. Rocket fire on the Gaza skyline. Well, whatever's left of it. Israel's invasion of Gaza at this point in time seems imminent, even as several reports that are doing the round talk about how the amassing of the soldiers, the reservists and the tanks at these border points is actually not all true altogether. But at the same time, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu He on Thursday visited the soldiers. He said that Israel will deal harsh blows to its enemies during his meeting with the Golani Brigade, particularly at the border with Gaza. Now, in northern Israel, near the border with Lebanon, Israeli army shelled towards the Lebanese lands as rockets were launched from the other side. But the military said that at least 20 rockets and an anti-tank missile had been fired from Lebanon, and that its forces were retaliating with artillery. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu, who went on to meet the Golan Brigade, listen into how Netanyahu tried to lift the spirit of the Israeli Defense Forces. Even as we'll play out that particular reaction, he's been taking stock of what's happening on all these border fronts. Listen in to what Netanyahu said to his soldiers.
אני פה עם הלוחמים של גולני, הם באים מכל חלקי הארץ, הם לחמו כמו אריות, הם ילחמו כמו אריות. אתם מוכנים להמשך? כן! אנחנו הולכים לנצח בכל העוצמה, אתם מוכנים? כן! כל עם ישראל עומד מאחוריכם, ואנחנו ניתן את המכה הקשה לאויבים שלנו, כדי שנשיג ניצחון לניצחון. מוכנים? כן!
And it's not just the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant. He addressed the infantry troops at the Gaza border as well, indicating the possibility of a ground invasion, hinting at it clearly by saying that they would soon see the Palestinian enclave, quote-unquote, from inside. There is no forgiveness for this thing. Only total annihilation of Hamas organization, terror infrastructures, everything that has to do with terrorists and whoever sent them. It will take a week, it will take a month, it will take 2 months until we eliminate them. You are not alone in battle. We trust you and count on you. Carry on training while there is time. Get organized, be prepared. The command will come. Thanks, guys. We count on you. Good luck. And anyone who now sees Gaza from a distance will see it from the inside. I promise you. Well, so the defense minister says, be ready, the command will come. Meanwhile, take a look at what's happening on the other side of the divide. Gazans right now waiting for relief aid. Even as truckloads of aid are waiting to be transported over to the Egyptian border into Gaza through the Rafah crossing. But the expected delivery is unlikely to raise spirits as the humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate in the Gaza Strip.
Truckloads of stockpiled aid are waiting to be transported into Gaza from Egypt through the Rafah crossing. Security forces say that machinery to repair roads has already been sent through in preparation, as more than 100 trucks await. Rafah, the only crossing not controlled by Israel, has been out of operation since the first days of the conflict. But the United States and Egypt have been pushing for a deal with Israel. On Wednesday, the White House said it had been agreed for up to 20 trucks to pass through, with hopes for more later, so long as those supplies do not reach Hamas. Most of Gaza's 2.3 million residents depend on aid. According to the United Nations, before the conflict started on October 7th, about 100 trucks daily were providing humanitarian relief to the enclave. But the upcoming arrival of aid is unlikely to raise spirits. Airstrikes and acute shortages of food, medicine and water are worsening the humanitarian situation in the Strip. In the city of Khan Yunis, the wounded, which includes UN workers and children alike, are being brought into hospital. These people have been injured as a result of airstrikes hitting a house on Thursday morning. Also in the city, those displaced from their homes have sought refuge in a wedding hall. This lady is among them and says the hall should be used for celebration, not as a place to mourn. Israel has said it will continue a blockade of humanitarian aid from Israel into Gaza until hostages held by Hamas are returned. Israel's bombardment and siege of Gaza is in retaliation for a devastating Hamas incursion into Israel on October 7th, during which 1,400 people were killed and hostages taken. Israel and Egypt have upheld a blockade of Gaza since Hamas took control of the territory in 2007, tightly controlling the movement of goods and people.
Well, now it's being said that that particular permission by the Israeli authorities was given only after Joe Biden visited Israel amid this raging war. Now, United States President Joe Biden, in his address to the nation, speaking to all Americans on the Israel-Hamas war, said that the United States was doing everything possible to bring back the hostages. He stated that making sure Ukraine and Israel succeed in their war is vital for America's own national security, going on to saying that what mistakes the U.S. made after 9/11 should not blind Israel. Listen in.
We're facing an inflection point in history. One of those moments where the decisions we make today are going to determine the future for decades to come. As I told the families of Americans being held captive by Hamas, we're pursuing every avenue to bring their loved ones home. As president, there is no higher priority for me than the safety of Americans held hostage. The terrorist group Hamas unleashed pure, unadulterated evil in the world. But sadly, the Jewish people know perhaps better than anyone that there is no limit to the depravity of people when they want to inflict pain on others. In Israel, I saw people who are strong, determined, resilient, and also angry, in shock and in deep, deep pain. I also spoke with President Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, and reiterated that the United States remains committed to the Palestinian people's right to dignity and to self-determination. The actions of Hamas terrorists don't take that right away. Like so many other, I'm heartbroken by the tragic loss of Palestinian life, including the explosion at the hospital in Gaza, which was not done by the Israelis. We mourn every innocent life lost. We can't ignore the humanity of innocent Palestinians who only want to live in peace and have an opportunity. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Iran is supporting Russia in Ukraine, and it's supporting Hamas and other terrorist groups in the region, and will continue to hold them accountable, I might add. American leadership is what holds the world together. American alliances are what keep us, America, safe. American values are what make us a partner that other nations want to work with. To put all that at risk, if we walk away from Ukraine, if we turn our backs on Israel, it's just not worth it. That's why tomorrow I'm going to send to Congress an urgent budget request to fund America's national security needs, to support our critical partners, including Israel and Ukraine. It's a smart investment that's going to pay dividends for American security for generations.
And on that exact note, in a recent development, a shipment of U.S. armored vehicles landed in Israel. The ministry spokesperson has clarified that the shipment carried the first batch of armored vehicles, which is aimed to replace the Israeli military cars that got damaged in the fighting against Hamas. Now, all of this development and this latest shipment of the armored vehicles comes just a day after U.S. President Joe Biden traveled to Israel to offer United States support in the aftermath of the October 7th attack on Israeli villages and military bases in Gaza, based in Palestinian Hamas, where gunmen who killed 1,400 people and took about 200 hostages as well. The president had earlier pledged a $100 million package in a new funding for humanitarian aid in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, and said that he would ask Congress for unprecedented aid to boost Israel's fight against the Hamas. And it's not just these armored vehicles. The Iron Dome has also been returned. Pentagon spokesperson Brigadier General Patrick Ryder announced that the United States has been providing military support to Israel over the past 2 weeks. Ryder also mentioned that additional artillery ammunition and critical equipment will be flown to Israel in the coming days.
And with respect to U.S. support to Israel, the first shipments of military aid, including munitions, began arriving in Israel last week and continue to arrive on a near-daily basis. This assistance is comprised of capabilities requested by Israel to include precision-guided munitions, such as joint direct attack munitions, small-diameter bombs, 155mm artillery ammunition, and other categories of critical equipment. In addition, Iron Dome interceptors from stocks that the United States has in country have been quickly provided to Israel. And in the days ahead, we'll be flowing additional Iron Dome interceptors so that Israel has the capabilities they need to sustain their Iron Dome defense systems and protect their citizens and cities from rocket attacks. We will leverage several avenues available to us to include our stocks and industry channels that reinforce the United States' unwavering and ironclad support for both the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli people. As always, the Department of Defense will continue to support, plan, and undertake these critical missions professionally and with the inherent right to protect our force.
Meanwhile, on the second front, fighters in Lebanon fired at least 2 anti-armor missiles into Israel, hitting the border village of Manara. No casualties were reported, and this has been corroborated by the Israeli military. Now, footage that you're looking at is from Naharia, another location along the Israel-Lebanon border that captured flames and smoke billowing into the sky. Meanwhile, the United States Embassy in Lebanon advised its citizens to plan their departure as quickly as possible while commercial travel options were still accessible. And on that second front, a video released by the Islamic Resistance showed explosions at what the group said was an Israeli military site, an IDF site, near the Israel-Lebanon border. The video shows Islamic Resistance fighters launching rockets from an unidentified location towards the military site. You can take a look at the strike point as well. The location was verified as just north of Malkia in northern Israel. With the help of the 2 red and white towers and a bunker, the path and position of bushes which matched satellite imagery. Now, since the 7th of October, Hamas's attack on Israel, the border area with Lebanon has seen some of the worst escalation in violence around the border area in the last 17-18 years. Well, now the World Health Organization says an Israeli order that forced people to evacuate hospitals in northern Gaza is actually a death sentence. Health facilities in the north of the territory are continuing to treat huge numbers of patients despite dwindling medical supplies, a shortage of beds, and repeated power outages. For tens of thousands, the hospitals have also become a de facto refugee shelter.
The morgue at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital is overflowing. Workers stack corpses in the parking lot outside. Bodies are coming in faster than relatives can claim them, and the hospital has run out of space for the remains. Israel's bombing campaign on the territory of 2.3 million has leveled entire neighborhoods, killing more than 2,000 Palestinians and wounding many more. Some of the injured are being treated in hospital corridors. Many of them are children. A shortage of beds, medical supplies, and power outages have left hospitals in the north struggling to cope. The World Health Organization says forcing the critically ill to move south amounts to a death sentence. It also says the evacuation order has left exhausted health workers facing a choice between abandoning patients or staying behind and putting their own lives at risk. Israel's evacuation order means the clinic became a shelter for more than 35,000 refugees. Many have set up makeshift tents in the front of the building, using carpets, curtains, and whatever they could salvage from their homes.
We received messages on our phones, so we left quickly. We came here to the hospital, but the place is more crowded than the schools. Everyone came here. There are no bathrooms, no food, no water. Nobody cares about us. I was displaced with my family, 16 of us. We go from place to place. May God help us.
The UN is calling on Israel to immediately reverse the evacuation order. But for countless Gazans, it's already too late.
Well, now, even as that's the dire situation in Gaza, let me take you across the border of what's really happening in Tel Aviv. Not a lot of leveled neighborhoods, but sirens and warnings of possible rocket attacks continue to blare in Tel Aviv, in Israel, amid escalating tensions with the Hamas. Central Israeli towns also heard sirens. Have been reported. No damage or casualties were reported, and Hamas has launched rockets in response to Israel's bombardment since the 7th of October attack, which killed around 1,400 Israelis. Well, our News 9 brings you the real pictures from the last post of the Rafah border crossing. If the border opens up, aid will go to Gaza from this area. News 9 ground report, take a look.
मैं इस समय मौजूद हूँ इजराइल और इजिप्ट के बॉर्डर पर। जी हाँ, अगर आप ये फेंसिंग देख रहे हो, इस तरफ जहाँ मैं खड़ा हूँ ये इजराइल है और उस तरफ जो आप फेंसिंग देख रहे हैं वो पूरा इजिप्ट है। और इस समय यहाँ पर हालांकि आपको शांति नजर आएगी। अगर आप देखें कि आपको नजर आएगा एक वो बॉर्डर पोस्ट जो आपको नजर आ रही है वो इजराइल की एक पोस्ट है। और अभी देखिए कि ये पूरा इलाका इजिप्ट का इलाका है जहाँ पर रसद लिए हुए या फिर जो रिलीफ मटेरियल लिए हुए वो लगातार ऐसे ट्रक्स आप लगातार तस्वीरों में देख रहे होंगे। यानी लगातार इन्हीं एरिया से इजराइल की तरफ जो इजिप्ट का बॉर्डर लगता है ये पूरा इलाका किस तरीके का है आप ये देखिए। मेरे कैमरा पर्सन अगर आपको इस तरफ घुमाएं और दिखाएं कि क्या इस समय यहाँ पे ताज़ा हालात हैं तो आपको देखकर समझ में आएगा कि अभी भी हालांकि यहाँ पर इजराइल की तरफ से सिक्योरिटी चार चौबंद कर दी गई है। बहुत ज़्यादा हाई अलर्ट पर ये पूरा इलाका है, लेकिन अभी आपको यहाँ पर शांति नज़र आ रही होगी क्योंकि यहाँ इलाकों के अंदर हालांकि ऐसा कोई कन्फ्लिक्ट नहीं होता, लेकिन फिर भी इजराइल ने इन इलाकों को भी बहुत सिक्योर कर रखा है। और ये सारा इलाका जो है वो इजिप्ट और इजराइल का बॉर्डर है। एक और जगह आगे जाकर मैं आपको दिखाऊंगा जहाँ पर इजिप्ट, इजराइल और गाजा का बॉर्डर लगता है, यानी वो ट्राई जंक्शन जहां से लगातार रसद का साजो सामान जा रहा है। आप ये देखिए कि कितना स्ट्रैटेजिक लोकेटेड या फिर इंपॉर्टेंट ये इलाका है जहां से आपको ये सारी जानकारियां मैं प्रोवाइड कर रहा हूं, दे रहा हूं कि आखिरकार इस समय क्या ताज़ा हालात यहां पर मौजूद हैं। मैं आपको फिर बता दूं कि वो फेंसिंग जो आप देख रहे हैं, देखिए किस तरीके की फेंसिंग की जाती है। बीच में दो जगह ऐसी फेंसिंग की गई है, बीच में आपको एक नाला टाइप नजर आ रहा होगा और उसके दूसरी तरफ आपको इजिप्ट की फेंसिंग नजर आ रही होगी। यानी ये वो इलाके हैं जहां से इजराइल और इजिप्ट के बॉर्डर्स लगते हैं। और ये पूरा इलाका इस समय मैं आपको टीवी 9 भारतवर्ष की टीवी पे कैमरे पे दिखाना चाह रहा हूं। इस समय हम एक बार फिर आपको बता दें कि हम इस समय इजिप्ट बॉर्डर पे मौजूद हैं। अगर आप देखें वो लगातार ऑब्जर्वेशन पोस्ट है इजिप्ट की, और ये पूरा बॉर्डर एरिया इजिप्ट के साथ जो इजराइल का लगता है वो करीबन 245 किलोमीटर का है। और आप मानिए कि ये सारा एग्रीमेंट यानी इस पूरे ज़मीन विवाद को इजिप्ट और इजराइल ने किस तरीके से 1979 के अंदर दोनों में समझौता हुआ था, और उसी के बाद 1906 के एग्रीमेंट पर यानी 1906 के बीच में जो समझौता हुआ था जिसे ग्रीन लाइन भी कहा जाता है, उसी के बेसिस पे 1971 के बाद ये बॉर्डर्स तय कर दिए गए। हालांकि जो फेंसिंग थी वो 2013 के अंदर इस तरीके से तैयार की गई, यानी ये सारी ये फेंसिंग जो है ये 2013 में इजराइल की तरफ से तैयार की गई। और अभी यहाँ के ताज़ा हालात हैं, क्योंकि ये इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि कई बार 2013 के बाद भी कई बार इन इलाकों से इन्फिल्ट्रेट करने की कोशिश की गई। अफ्रीकी देशों की तरफ से खासतौर पर कहा जाता है कि कई लोग इजराइल में घुसना चाहते थे और इन्हीं फेंसिंग की मदद से लगातार इजराइल ने इनको रोका। ये देखिए निस्ताने सिनाय, ये बोर्ड एक बार फिर आप देख लीजिए। ये सारा इलाका निस्ताने सिनाय यानी उस इलाके में मैं मौजूद हूँ जहाँ पर इजराइल की और इजिप्ट की सीमाएं लगती हैं। यानी ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया है। हालांकि अभी ये शांत है, लेकिन यहीं से लगातार कहा जा रहा है कि कई बार इन्फिल्ट्रेशन के अटेम्प्ट किए जाते हैं जिसको सिक्योर करने का काम इजराइल की सेना करती है। लगातार इजिप्ट एक ऐसा देश है जो गाजा पट्टी में रसद सामग्री पहुंचा सकता है, क्योंकि इजराइल ने इसको लेकर साफ तौर पर आधिकारिक रूप से मना कर दिया। लेकिन इजिप्ट ही एक ऐसा बॉर्डर लगता है जो दोनों जगहों से यानी इजराइल और गाजा से लगता हुआ है, और इजिप्ट ही एकमात्र ऐसा रास्ता है जहां से रसद सामग्री दुनिया भर से गाजा में पहुंचाई जा सकती है। लेकिन हालांकि इस एरिया में किस तरीके से शांति है, क्योंकि इजराइल ने इसको लेकर भी साफ वार्निंग दे दी थी कि अगर इजिप्ट से गया हुआ कोई भी सामान, कोई भी राहत सामग्री हमास के पास पहुंची तो फिर हम उसे भी टारगेट करेंगे। लेकिन अगर आप इन एरियाज में देख रहे हो, मैं आपको दिखा रहा हूं कि आपको मेरे कैमरा पर्सन दिखा रहे हो, वहां पे साफ तौर पर लिख दिया गया है कि सिर्फ आधिकारिक व्हीकल्स ही यहां से गुजर सकते हैं, यानी वो इजरायली अधिकारी व्हीकल्स जो इन इलाकों में मौजूद हैं। और मैं आपको ये दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं कि आखिरकार इस समय के ताज़ा हालात इजिप्ट और इजराइल बॉर्डर पर कैसे हैं। हालांकि दोनों देशों के बीच में कई चीज़ों को लेकर सहमति है, कभी भी यहाँ पर हालांकि लंबे समय से कोई ऐसी चीज़ें नहीं हो, लेकिन अभी किस तरीके के ताज़ा हालात हैं ये भी हम आपको दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। और मैं आपको ये भी बता रहा हूँ कि ये एकमात्र ऐसा रास्ता है जो गाजा पट्टी तक राहत सामग्री पहुँचा सकता है। 245 किलोमीटर का ये पूरा एरिया TV9 भारतवर्ष आपको सबसे पहले दिखा रहा है। मैं समय एक बार फिर से उस जगह पर मौजूद हूँ जिसका स्ट्रेटेजिक लोकेशंस बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है, और यही वो इलाका है जहां से सारी राहत सामग्री गाजा पट्टी जाएगी अगर इजराइल उसमें अवरोधक नहीं बनता। और इजराइल ये भी कह चुका कि अगर वो हमास के पास पहुंची तो फिर हम कार्रवाई करेंगे। इस समय मौजूद हूँ इजराइल और इजिप्ट के बॉर्डर पर। अगर आप देखें ये बॉर्डर के पास के वो इलाके हैं जो पूरी तरीके से खाली करा दिए गए हैं। हालांकि मैं आपको बताऊं कि इजिप्ट और इजराइल के बॉर्डर पर ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी एहतियात के तौर पर इजराइल ने सारे बॉर्डर्स एरिया खाली करा दिए गए हैं। और अगर आप देखें तो आपको यहाँ पर सिर्फ और सिर्फ कुछ चीज़ें नज़र आ जाएंगी, यानी जो मूलभूत चीज़ें हैं उनको यहाँ पर रखा गया है। बाकी सारे इलाके इस समय खाली करा दिए गए हैं। और मेरे कैमरा पर्सन निशांत आपको ये दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि आखिरकार इस समय के यहाँ ताज़ा हालात कैसे हैं। देखिए, इजराइल और गाजा पट्टी पर ही जंग नहीं हो रही, लगातार जिस तरीके से माहौल बदल रहा है इसको लेकर इजराइल बहुत ज़्यादा सतर्क है, ना सिर्फ लेबनान बॉर्डर पर सीरिया के साथ बल्कि इजिप्ट के बॉर्डर के आसपास भी। यहाँ शांति है, लेकिन कहा जा रहा है कि इस जगह कभी भी हालात बदल सकते हैं। और TV9 भारतवर्ष आपको इन इलाकों में लेकर आया है ये दिखाने के लिए कि अभी इस समय के ताज़ा हालात किस तरीके के हैं। और देखिए, ये जो इलाका है ये राफा, यानी आप कह सकते हैं कि इसको पूरा इलाका, देखिए अगर आपको आखिरी झंडा आपको नज़र आ रहा हो, इसके अलावा सारा जो है इजिप्ट का एरिया है। और यहीं से लगातार जो सामान है जिसकी बात इजराइल का इजिप्ट कर रहा है वो जा रही है। और अगर आप दूसरी तरफ देख रहे हो, यह आखिरी चेक पोस्ट है जो मेरे कैमरा पर्सन आपको दिखाएंगे, वो इजराइल की चेक पोस्ट है, आखिरी चेक पोस्ट। और उसके इलाके का सारा इलाका जो है फिर आपको सिर्फ इजिप्ट का इलाका नज़र आ जाएगा। TV9 भारतवर्ष आपको ये सारे इलाके इसलिए दिखा रहा है ताकि आप ये समझ सके कि अभी यहाँ के ताज़ा हालात क्या हैं। देखिए, मेरे कैमरा पर्सन आपको निशान दूसरी तरफ दिखाइए, और ये देखिए ये इजिप्ट का इलाका है। और इस तरफ जहाँ ये आखिरी पोस्ट है ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ इजराइल की पोस्ट है। और ये इलाके इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि आप समझ सकें ताकि इस समय की जियो लोकेशन कैसी है, कौन कौन से इलाके हैं। और TV9 भारतवर्ष आपको ये सारे इलाके इसी तरीके से दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहा है।
Meanwhile, on the international diplomacy front, Jordan's foreign minister expressed deep concerns about the ongoing Gaza war, stating that there are no signs of success in de-escalation efforts. At a press conference with his German counterpart, Ayman Safadi warned of catastrophic repercussions and the need to protect the region from further escalation. Safadi stressed that diplomatic efforts have not yielded any results in ending the conflict. He vowed that Jordan would use all available means to oppose a mass displacement of Palestinians that could lead to demographic or geographic changes in the region. The catastrophe left by this war will have dangerous, painful, and long consequences for periods to come. Violence does not justify violence. Killing does not justify killing. More innocent people fall with every day passing, and it becomes more difficult to achieve security, peace, and stability for everyone. We are doing our best, but in the end, the decision to end the war is not with us, to be honest. Reaching a decision to end this war should be a target that all regional and international efforts are deployed to achieve. This crisis situation, which was acutely triggered by the terrible terrorist attacks by Hamas, also means a catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, and that is why we both want to alleviate this catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza. Meanwhile, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul visited Kfar Aza kibbutz in Israel alongside Foreign Minister Eli Cohen. The kibbutz, which is located just 3 kilometers from the Gaza Strip, suffered heavily during the Hamas's assault on southern Israel, resulting in the deaths of over 1,000 people, mainly civilians from Israel. Kfar Aza, once a community of 750 people, was significantly affected. Now, Kathy Hochul's visit aims to express solidarity and support for Israel, where she met with diplomatic leaders and the affected communities.
really strong, but everybody has a friend, everybody knows somebody. I want to let the people here know that they're not alone.
Well, like I promised, other top developments from around the world. World's largest producer and exporter of graphite, China, has made a big move. A move towards controlling supplies of critical minerals as it widens the curb on graphite exports. Now, China's Commerce Ministry said that it will require export permits for some graphite products to protect national security. Well, now, this move has been taken in response to the challenges over its manufacturing dominance when many foreign governments are increasing their pressure on Chinese companies over their industrial practices. Now, under the new restrictions, China will require, as of December 1, that exporters apply for permits to ship two types of graphite, including the high purity, high hardness, and high intensity synthetic graphite material, and natural flake graphite and its products. Now, to better understand why the graphite export is so important for the world. Well, it's important because China produces 850,000 metric tons of graphite, while it refines world's 90% of graphite into a material used in making anodes for all EV batteries, electronic vehicles, the big market that everybody's talking about now. Now, according to data, Japan, the United States, India, and South Korea are the top buyers of China. So, the operative part here being India, being one of the top buyers of graphite and the anodes that are used in EV batteries from China, ladies and gentlemen. The world's largest producer and exporter of graphite, China has made a big move towards controlling supplies of critical minerals as it widens the curb on graphite exports. China's Commerce Ministry has come out and corroborated this particular statement. It is going to require export permits for some graphite products to protect its national security. And at this point in time, it's only going to be interesting to see how the business teams and the business modules and moguls now look at this new restriction that's come across from China. Meanwhile, shifting our focus here, ladies and gentlemen, from China going to Chile, because in Chile, dozens protested outside the Israeli embassy, showing support for Palestinians in Gaza. They condemned Israel's attacks, calling it a quote-unquote genocide. Now, similar protests occurred worldwide due to Israel's intensified airstrikes since the 7th of October, which has resulted in over 3,700 deaths and over 12,000 injuries in Gaza alone. Hamas's attack on Israel led to 1,400 casualties and around 200 hostages still in Hamas's custody. Here's a report. And moving on, outspoken conservative Jim Jordan sought more time to bolster his faltering bid for the top job in the United States House of Representatives after losing a second vote on Wednesday. Now, while his fellow Republicans considered a backup option for the leader's chamber.
Republican Jim Jordan has stumbled again in his bid for Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. The conservative firebrand and close Trump ally lost a second vote for the chamber's top job on Wednesday, faring even worse than he had in the first vote less than a day earlier.
The tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 433, of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 199. No person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected.
Between the two votes, Jordan lost the support of one Marionette Miller Meeks, who represents a politically competitive district in Iowa. Miller Meeks said she had received, quote, credible death threats after pulling her support from Jordan in the second vote. Republicans, who control the chamber by a narrow 9-vote margin, have been unable to unite behind a speaker candidate since the unprecedented ouster of Kevin McCarthy on October 3rd. The House has now entered its third week without a speaker. leaving Congress unable to respond to the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, or move to prevent a partial government shutdown, which will begin in a month without congressional action. That paralysis, along with Jordan's failure to secure the support needed to win the gavel, is pushing some Republicans to consider a backup option for the leaderless chamber, including expanding the powers of Representative Patrick McHenry, who is temporarily filling the Speaker's chair. Democrats, meanwhile, have seized on the infighting across the aisle to make the case for a compromise candidate, backed by both parties.
And now one of the world's most photographed and iconic landmarks, the Sydney Opera House. Well, it turns 50 today. It took 14 years to complete on the site of an old tram shed on the Sydney Harbour. The architectural marvel, designed by a Danish architect, was opened by Britain's Queen Elizabeth II in 1973. Now recognized as an emblem and a symbol of Australia, it was a UNESCO-listed site in 2007 and has hosted world-class performances inside and outside the venue. Now take a look at this. Fully automatic robo-taxis are driving around in San Francisco. There is no human being behind the wheel. The vehicles are steered by artificial intelligence. How are people reacting to these innovative vehicles, or should I say, robo-cabs? Take a look.
Driverless cars like this one are a common sight here in famously tech-friendly San Francisco. Cameras, radar and LiDAR technology continuously scan the car's surroundings. The cabs use cloud-based map systems to navigate their way through the city. But the technology isn't perfect. Cars don't always wait where they should, and often stop when they get confused, blocking traffic.
I don't know why we're stopped.
Accidents have happened. One car crashed into a fire truck in San Francisco, sparking protest, especially amongst taxi drivers.
They are a menace. They stop unexpectedly. They actually have broken the law many times. We see them signal one way and then go another way.
Sharon Giovinazzo is more convinced. Her non-profit is partnered with an autonomous car provider. And for a blind person, no driver means no discrimination.
One of the things I found out with taxis and rideshare services, because I choose to have a guide dog to navigate the world, is they will leave me standing on the side of the street and they will cancel rides even after they pull up and they see the dog. They don't want to have the dog in their vehicle. Whereas here, there's no opinion because there's no driver.
And autonomous vehicles can navigate traffic more smoothly than a human being, she says.
When you're like, or that sudden stop that's made, or you feel people swerving and people honking at you and not being able to see what's going on. It's fearful. It really is. I've never had one fear sitting in one of these. I just say that it's welcome to the future.
So far, robo-taxis are something of an experiment. And not all people in San Francisco want their city to be a test track. But it seems they are here to stay.
Well, moving on, climate activist Greta Thunberg took part in a protest outside the JP Morgan offices in London, calling for an end to the bank's funding of fossil fuel projects. Dozens of demonstrators gathered at the entrance of the financial services provider in Canary Wharf, the city's business district, chanting and displaying placards against the company. Well, shifting our focus back to Ukraine, which is desperately short of judges at this point in time, and is kick-starting a nationwide hiring spree to fill more than 2,000 vacancies and vet around as many sitting judges for potential misconduct. Reforming the judiciary, even while the country is at war, is a requirement if it is to join the European Union one day.
Israel-Hamas, a judge in Kiev, typically handles dozens of administrative cases and several criminal hearings a day. And she knows others who are even busier. Not only is Ukraine at war, but it's also desperately short of judges. and on a long-awaited hiring spree to fill more than 2,000 vacancies. Cementing the rule of law is crucial to Ukraine's ambitions to join the European Union.
The amount of material that I have to work with that fills my head each day is too much. Working with all this overload is very difficult. When we come to work, we cannot even imagine how many air raid alerts there will be and which bomb shelters we will have to run to.
Since the 2014 revolution toppled a pro-Moscow president, Ukraine has charted a pro-Western course and embarked on reforms. But they've met systemic resistance, watchdogs say. A vast backlog of cases has delayed justice for many people. Two bodies responsible for hiring and disciplining judges were effectively frozen for years and only recently relaunched under EU pressure. War has brought a new burden. About 100,000 alleged Russian crimes under investigation. District Court Judge Yulia Ivanina says only about 40 have so far been sent to the courts.
Considering that 100,000 war crimes have already been registered, just think how many new cases will be sent to courts. Even if all the vacancies are filled, all the hiring is done, the workload will still be enormous.
On top of hiring new ones, Ukraine must vet 2,000 or so sitting judges for misconduct. Endemic corruption means few Ukrainians trust the courts. High-profile scandals include the recent arrest of the former head of the Supreme Court. He denies taking a $2.7 million bribe. Making sure appointees are politically independent is another tough task. Ludmila Volkova is on the commission tasked with both new hires and integrity checks.
Those who keep their posts, whose competence we confirm, will shape the new era of judicial power in Ukraine.
The judiciary overhaul is part of a broader crackdown on corruption. A survey in July found 89% of Ukrainians see corruption as the most serious problem facing their country, apart from the war. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians have died to defend their fragile democracy, and experts say tolerance of official abuse has worn thin.
Meanwhile, even as we're talking about Ukraine, let's quickly tell you what's happening in Russia as well. Russia has detained a journalist of a US-funded Radio Free Europe for failing to register as a foreign agent while visiting for a family emergency.
Alsu Kamasheva, an editor at US-funded Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, has been detained by Russia. That's according to the broadcaster. RFE said the detention was for failing to register as a foreign agent while visiting Russia for a family emergency. Kamasheva, an editor with Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty's Tatar Bashkir service, holds both US and Russian passports. Russia's tightened its control over the media since the start of the Ukraine war. Leading independent news outlets have closed, and many journalists and publications designated as so-called foreign agents. The term, which carries Cold War connotations of espionage, is used in Russia to label organizations, journalists, activists and celebrities deemed to be engaging in political activity with foreign support. After the war and the arrest of Wall Street Journal correspondent Evan Gershkovich in March on spying charges, almost all US journalists have left the country. The State Department repeatedly urged US citizens to leave Russia. Kamasheva travelled to Russia on May 20th. As she sought to leave Russia at the end of her trip at Kazan airport, she was detained and her passports were confiscated as she awaited her return flight. She was fined for failing to register her US passport with Russian authorities.
And even as we're wrapping the show up, we must talk about this because you have to get ready for an incredible celebration. The Festival of India, brought to you only by the TV9 network, is set to light up Major Dhyan Chand Stadium in the national capital from today onwards, the 20th of October till the 24th of October. Visuals of the opening on your screens, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? Entry is absolutely free for everybody. Starting 10 a.m. today, the 20th, this explosive event is your pre-Diwali extravaganza, offering a treasure trove of goods from India and around the world, ladies and gentlemen. All the states are going to be putting up performances. All the states are going to be putting up their cultural art on display for you to take a look at, revel there, have a nice time, and buy artifacts to gift your loved ones as well. Around Diwali, this particular time, we do love traveling to our relatives. We do love sitting down with the people that we adore and, really get those gift swapping beginning. If you're hungry, well, we've got you covered. Take a look at that. You've got a proper food court with about 100 plus stalls that are serving up some scrumptious dishes from various Indian states and international favorites as well. But it doesn't stop at food. You can shop for home appliances, stylish clothes, the latest gadgets, electronic goodies, furniture, two-wheelers, and more, all at a fantastic price. And the fun does not end there. We're rolling out exhibitions from Italy, from Turkey, from Iran, Afghanistan, Thailand, and other countries. Plus, live music to keep the festival vibes high. There will be amazing programs showcasing the unique art and culture of different states, giving you a taste of Indian life in all its vibrant glory. So join us for the Festival of India, a vibrant blend of shopping, delicious treats, and unforgettable experiences. It's a date you won't want to miss. 20th till the 24th of October.
बंगाल में नारी जाति शक्ति के लिए भी पूजित होते हैं और आपको पता होगा हमारे कंपनी ने अभी HR ने वाव एक वी ऑन बोर्ड वुमेन एक इनिशिएटिव लागू किया है तो हम ये सोचते हैं एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हम लोग विमेन एम्पावरमेंट के बारे में बहुत सजग रहते हैं और इसीलिए दुर्गा पूजा इज़ अ सिंबॉलिक फेस्टिविटी of celebrating women empowerment and the power of women empowerment. हम न्यूज़ चैनल है, न्यूज़ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, देश के सबसे बड़ा न्यूज़ नेटवर्क है, तो हम जो भी करते हैं उसमें हमारे दर्शकों के लिए कोई संदेशा रहता है. हम सिर्फ बिजनेस के लिए कुछ भी नहीं करते.
देखिए, दुर्गा पूजा शक्ति की आराधना का पर्व है. हम सबको शक्ति चाहिए, ताकत चाहिए. हम देश, समाज और अपने नेटवर्क की ताकत के संकल्प के साथ इस पूजा का शुभारंभ कर रहे हैं. आपको देश की जो विविधता है, यह देश इतना विविध है, उसके दर्शन इस पंडाल में होंगे. सभी देशों के, सभी प्रांतों के रहन सहन और खान पान का यहाँ इंतजाम है.
Well, the 20th till the 24th at Major Dhyan Chand National Stadium in the national capital. Do not miss it. The unbelievable experiences that you will get to witness over there. With that, that's all the time we have for you in this edition. Lots more coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching News 9 Live.
Hello everyone, Namaskar, I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News 9 Plus.